Hello, hello. I'm Old Lady Dodge.
I'm Raven.
And today
on Unstruggling Podcast.
That's right. This is Unstruggling Podcast because I forget to say that about 90% of the time. And what is it today on Unstruggling Podcast?
Today I want to talk about before you hit your limit. Not waiting until you hit your limit. How important that is. So,
how do we know when it's your limit?
Oh, wait. Okay, you always have such good questions.
I know. I know when I get super stressed and my head's spinning and I can't put a thought together. Yeah. Is that how you know?
Oh, I think, this is interesting. So, I think we all have different physiological signs of being stressed. So, I feel a lot of stress in my stomach.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel it a lot. Like, stomach upset or just, I don't know. Sometimes, I don't know how to describe it. Like, sometimes you just have tension in your stomach. The people who understand it will know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like, I don't necessarily feel like I'm going to have, bad stool or anything. Oh, but I do feel, some people feel their tension in their chest. I feel it in my stomach.
Some people get headaches.
Some people get headaches, yes.
Lightheaded.
Yeah.
And I had that happen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do that too. Yes, I'm in the sweaty crowd too. I sweat when I'm getting stressed out.
Are you stressed right now? I'm just wondering. No, I'm just kidding.
No. So, I think if you know what signs your body sends to you when you're feeling stressed, my point is don't wait until that time. Like, if you're starting to have the thoughts of this is too much, you've waited until it's too late. And so I think before you hit your limit is just taking care of yourself, taking care of your mental wellness before you start having those thoughts, before you start feeling those stress signs. So I think doing it regularly, which is something I'll get to, is important because you don't really have to note when you're stressed. You can just do whatever you need to in order to relax yourself on a regular basis. And
well, let's give them some hints on that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, but I think it's important. I want to talk about why you should do that because I think a lot of people do wait until they're at their limit or overwhelmed, and it is too late because it is harder to calm yourself, soothe yourself, deflate, de-stress, relax, when you have just been holding it in and holding it in and holding it in. It's really hard to do that. So don't wait. And then also, sometimes it's hard to remember what calms you or what relaxes you when you're feeling overwhelmed and thinking of 1,000 things and your thoughts are racing and you have a whole to-do list of stuff you need to do. It's hard to remember the things that calm you down in those moments.
Well, first you have to stop.
Yeah.
Right? Or pause.
Yes.
Because that's huge. It is you keep going. You're never going to even take the time to recognize that you're reaching your limit. So
right.
And it's kind of hard to stop because you're anxious in the first place and you're just like, oh, I got to get this done. I got to get this done, this done. And then you're going to say, oh, you know what? I think I'll just take a little break and breathe here. That takes a lot. It takes a lot to do that.
It's not encouraged enough. Like, you have all the people talking about self-care and take a minute for yourself, but I think in the real world, when you're not on social media, in the real world, people aren't doing that. People at your job are not saying, okay, everybody, don't work during your lunch break. Don't stay after work all the time. Don't come in a half hour, whatever, early all the time. You don't have to check your email afterward. Right? Like, there's not an actual, people don't actually encourage you to disconnect in the real world.
Right.
So it's something people say on social media, but not at work or at home in a lot of people's lives anyway. So I think we have to build that in for ourselves, just like you built in all this other stuff that you do, but then you didn't build in your break time or your wellness time, whatever. Mm-hmm. So,
and you can even have other people recognize, that you are spiraling. Ooh, or that you have that. And I mean, with my daughter, I mean, she's got a lot. She's got 2 young kids, and she's trying to clean houses, and she's trying to keep her own house clean and do things. And no matter what I say, like, slow down, just enjoy. But, she's really probably saying, Mom, get the hell out of here and just leave me alone. I'm in the middle of something. I'm doing. So even having a loved one say to you, slow down, or you're doing too much, a lot of times we don't listen,
That's
we
correct.
we don't pay attention to that. And I think it's because the world, everything goes so fast, and let's get everything done. And there's the whole, we got to be perfect thing, it's like everything has to be so perfect. I told my husband for the holidays this year, we used paper plates and plastic, which we never do. And I'm like, you know what? We got too many people. We got too much stuff going on. Let's just take it easy. Right? So what do you do? What do you do if you start to think, and some people go to a therapist. I mean, and I think that's really good. Yeah. Did you find a new therapist?
I'm not going to for the moment.
Okay.
I'm not. I feel like I'm in a place where I am fine without therapy.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to be for always, but that's my life where I'm in and out of it, just depending on what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I'm in a good spot for the moment. Mm-hmm. And so
So going
to a therapist is a good thing to do, just depending on the amount of stress and stressors in your life. That is a good thing to do.
And it depends on the therapist too, because I'm going to tell you.
Yes.
I don't go to a therapist. Right. I went to a psychiatrist who would spend 60 minutes talking to me. And he was really good because he would actually talk to me. But I think there's a lot of therapists out there that just kind of listen. And I know they're supposed to listen, but you're like, no, I need you to say something. That's the way I was. Yes. It's like, so what do you think about that? Well, what do you think? Well, and I'm like, I can't deal with that.
That's valid.
Yeah, I can't deal with that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so that works for some people. Mm-hmm. But so what do you do? Did you already answer this already?
No.
Oh, okay. What do you do when you see yourself spiraling?
Okay. Okay, so one, if you see yourself spiraling, you have waited until it's too late. Mm-hmm. So
can you backtrack? Can you let yourself down?
You have to disconnect for sure. If you do not disconnect, you're going to continue to spiral. Okay. So if you notice yourself spiraling, you have to find a way to disconnect somehow. And obviously that looks different in a lot of ways, but a lot of times that's who can help you. Reaching out to somebody who can help you, let's say a family member. So like, let's say you have children. Who can help you take care of your children?
Yeah.
If you're dealing with job stress.
Right.
Is it possible for you to take some time off, or take a little bit of time off, or work a shorter shift?
Or talk to a coworker that you like?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Talk to someone. I think talking to other people is good, but I do think if you don't disconnect, talking will only do so much.
Yeah.
And all these other calming strategies only do so much. You have to create a break, create a pause in your life in order to slow the spiral. And when the spiral slows, that's when you can start doing all the other advice that people recommend when they tell you to do self-care and all this other stuff. So I think that's great for when you're spiraling.
Yeah, and I think too, and I've said this before, you got to say it out loud. Because if you hold it in, if you even think, well, I'm okay, I'll be all right, or, that's like a clear thing. Oh, I'm just going to relax later.
Oh,
that's another thing, but I really do feel like saying, I'm having a really hard time.
Yes.
I'm having a hard time right now, and bouncing it off someone else. But you got to say it out loud. You can't internalize that and your feelings and bury them and keep going. So that does mean disconnect and say it out loud.
Yes,
right?
I agree.
Yeah.
So that's good for when you're spiraling. And I think before you get to that point, I think it's important for all of us to reframe whatever harmful ideas we have about resting and relaxing. So old lady Dodge just said one, that whole idea of I'm going to relax later, I'm going to sleep later, you can't do that. I think it's important to reframe any harmful ideas or beliefs you have about resting or relaxing. So for instance, like old lady Dodge was just saying, I'll relax later. Or if people say, I'm going to sleep later, I'll
catch up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't do that, because what I will say, and I think people are starting to talk more about this and realize this, is your mental wellness and physical wellness will suffer if you do not pause and break and relax. Your physical health will take a nosedive. Right. There's been more people talking about how women suffer a lot from different autoimmune diseases and cancers and all this other stuff. And yeah, I mean, there are biological contributing factors, genetics and all that, but there's also something to be said about taking care of your mental wellness, right? Like if you are not relaxing, your central nervous system isn't relaxing either, and so that can increase inflammation in your body. All of that stuff, you can research it.
And it all comes down to not taking time for yourself.
Correct.
Because you're too busy doing something for someone else or taking care of other things. So it does come down to self-care again. Now I always say, go for a walk. You have all these like great ideas. And I'm like, before we started, I'm like, do not tell someone to go for a walk. Well, you can, but that's not what I was going to say.
Exercise does help.
It does.
As much as people hate it, and it's not fun.
But you know what I do?
You can make exercising fun.
You know what I do is there's like square breathing, and I guess you could call it this, but I count to 8. I breathe in through my nose, count to 8 while I'm doing it. I hold it for 8 seconds, and then I blow out for 8 seconds. Now, 8 seconds is a long time. I got some pretty damn good lungs, I think, because some people can't do that. So that's one. And then just finding a different place, whether it's just outside, if it's nice out, just like in a hammock, or, just sitting under a tree, or, walking
to a park.
Yeah,
to a park nearby, because I live near a park where you can just go sit near the water if the water relaxes you.
Even walking along the shoreline is like, and looking at rocks. I'm sorry, but that's like my big thing. I am really cool. A rock collector. Yeah. And by the time I get done, they're like, I'm loaded with them. But so it does make total sense,
you have to carve out time for that. And I think if you don't like exercise, but you want to incorporate it somehow, there's 1,000 different ways to make it more interesting to you, whether it is getting an exercise buddy, because there's other people in your life who struggle with the same thing a lot of the time. So you can have accountability partners, people call them, but you can get an exercise buddy. Excuse me.
You actually have to do it.
You can join a gym. There's all these things. Or old lady Dodge and I have dogs. Yeah. So animals makes it interesting. So even if you don't have a dog, though, you can walk somebody else's dog. Sure. You can go to a shelter or humane society.
That's
walk the dogs there. That's really cool.
Oh, they so need that. Yes. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Yes. And they will let you just take them out and walk them, and who knows, you may fall in love with one and give someone a forever home.
Yeah. But, so those are some ways to make exercising more intriguing or interesting for you. And I do think even you can do this with meditation. Yeah. So I think this is something that a lot of people say, I can't meditate. I can't sit there and not.
I got monkey mind. Yeah, my mind's going. How do you meditate?
Yeah, so meditation is interesting because you don't have to not think of anything. I think that is a way, but there is not one way to meditate. So what I do a lot is I do like a 7-word meditation. And it doesn't have to be 7 words, okay? It can be 5, 3, 9, whatever the case is.
How does that work? I never heard of that one.
Yeah, well, I learned about this because I have a mala set. I should have brought it. I don't have
What is mala?
Mala beads. Yeah, they are beads. I believe they're used in the Buddhism tradition. Okay. For meditating. Okay. And I think it's a string of somewhere around 114 beads or something like that. Oh, okay. And you can tactilely hold the beads in your hand and pull one through your fingers at a time and put a word to each bead.
Oh.
Like in patterns of 7. So you can assign 7 words to 7 beads and then keep repeating that around the string of mala beads. So you can do that. I mean, there's other versions of this, right? There's rosaries, okay? Like that's another,
my grandma, my mom
used in another faith. So you can have a tactile reference for meditating in that way. Or I also have gratitude stones.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's just rocks somebody picked up, okay?
Yeah, right.
But they gave them to me, and
they're smooth.
You could get different textures if you like.
Yeah.
But I have gratitude stones, and I can just put a word to 5 stones, and then hold the stones and repeat the words. If that helps you, you can do that.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. I never thought of meditation like that.
Yes. Yeah, and it's just repeating. It's just focusing on something. So
what helped me too? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but what helped me, speaking of that, was doing something different, is to light a candle and to stare at the flame.
Yes,
because
I like that.
It waves, and it's the flame is blue or red, and just staring at the flame with like the way it shifts. That helped me a lot to try to slow down my monkey mind when I did it. Yeah. So
okay, when I had eyesight, when I was really small, I was a tyke. And I used to stare at fire a lot. So that made me think of that. I used to do that a lot when I did have some vision. So I think that's interesting. I think that's fascinating, and I think that's valuable also. So there are a lot of different ways to meditate. I mean, you could even get a really nice picture you like to look at and save it on your phone, or whatever. You can do that and just look at it and visualize with that in mind. I mean, there's so many different ways to do meditation. So I would say don't be discouraged away from meditation or exercise or whatever it is that you've tried. Don't be discouraged because the one way you tried it didn't work out for you. There's gonna be a way that works for you, so I encourage you.
And it takes practice. So a lot of times when you first do it, it doesn't work, and then people get frustrated. I can't slow my mind down. This isn't working. This isn't working. We go back to you are what you think. This isn't working. This isn't working. So try to clear that away and give it a little bit of time, because it's not going to be instantaneous.
Right. And it doesn't work because you don't practice. Right. You have to actually practice, and when you practice relaxing in whatever way helps you, if you practice that before you hit your limit, or like I like to say to other people, during low risk times, the more you practice it, the easier it will be to do this when you have hit your limit, or when you are overwhelmed and feeling flustered. It'll be easier to do it at that time. And
try to stay away from the food. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm not. Maybe I'm talking for me, but
I'm a stress eater. I've done that. I've done the stress eating.
So try or grab some vegetables or fruit or something, because if I ate every time I was stressed, it would be not very healthy.
Yes.
Well, Raven, thank you for that topic. That was really good. I enjoyed it. Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I also wanted to say, having more than one go-to person is very important. You don't want to always unload on the same one or two people. Ideally, you have 3 at least people you can connect with who understand you, they're validating, they're supportive, and don't make you feel judged. That does not mean they agree with everything you say or do. I'm just saying they don't belittle you for the way that you feel. That's very important to have. And it's especially important too if you have people who are empowering and make you feel motivated, because that's so important to have. I agree. No, I agree.
Okay.
No, Old Lady Donna is one of my go-to people. So, yes.
Well, you're one of mine too.
Aww.
You are definitely one of mine. We've had many conversations on that stress load. We've had those.
Yes. And I think that's important, because during times where you feel like crap, or you can't, or you feel like you don't know where you find the strength, reaching out to people, your go-to person, is important, because those people can make you feel empowered and motivated. So have those relationships, and I say work on them again before you hit your limit, because if the only time you reach out to somebody is when you feel like crap, I'm sorry, the other person's not going to enjoy your relationship. We have to accept that. You got to work on your relationship outside of feeling stressed all the time also.
Yep.
Again, practice during low risk times. That's so important. So,
did
those
we
are
go
my
to
tips.
10 already again? Oh, I think we did. We're at 10. We bet they're going to cut us off. You know that QuickTime does it all the time.
Okay.
So what do we want to say?
Let us know in the comments how you deal with stress, how you prevent getting overwhelmed. How do you make sure you relax on a regular basis before you hit your limit? Tell us.
Yes. And as always, let's unstruggle together.